I've been a Sonic fan for years. I played many of the games, I watched most of the TV series, heck, I even grown up watching and even animated Sonic sprite animations. And you know, the inner fighting game fan in me just wanted to see some kind of sequel to Sonic the Fighters, Sonic Battle, or just seeing a new Sonic fighting game come out in general. So today I just want to talk about one of my favorite video game series of all times, while also fusing it with my favorite genre of video games. Without further ado, let's talk about a hypothetical Sonic game that we most likely will never get.
He's the one for me, there's no place I'd rather be. Yeah. To the finish line, everywhere you look, he's right on time. With a silent stare, racing through the open air, he's without care. Everywhere you look, he's right on time. Moving to the beat. Can you feel the heat when the tigers kiss the street?
Whenever I think of a Sonic fighting game, I definitely imagine the early 2000s Sonic spin-off game. You know, your Sonic Riders, your storybook games, those type of games. One of the reasons why a lot of Sonic games catch a lot of flack in recent years is that both the story and character writing are usually a wacky mess. Not you SonicFrontiers, you're great. I think if you just keep a simple but interesting story with consistent character writing, you really have a decent Sonic game. We could just use the exact same story beats as the early 2000 spin-offs that I was talking about earlier. You know, your typical Sonic and friends find out that Eggman is plotting another scheme, he has an emerald in his possession. During the search, they run into a new character of the game who teams up with Eggman for story reasons. Eventually things get out of hand and the situation calls for Sonic, Eggman and the new character to create a temporary truce to combat whatever new threat came about due to Eggman's scheme. You know, classic. Now when I think of a fighter in Sonic, I always think of Knuckles. I think most people in the series think of Knuckles as the brawler, and because of that I can see this being more of a Knuckles focused narrative. With that being said, I think this new character that I mentioned before should be an echidna. Now I know all the echidnas were killing the Chaos Crisis as shown in Sonic Adventure, but let's be honest, it's rare for a piece of media to not pull the "wait, there's actually another survivor" trope, right? It would also be ironic to see Eggman manipulate another echidna to help him fight Sonic. Knuckles would essentially be looking into a mirror at his past mistakes. But hey, this is just a hypothetical game, I'm not trying to make a fan fiction or anything like that. So let's move on. Now I don't have many ideas for gameplay, but I still did come up with a few ideas. In most Sonic games, the main mechanic is to collect rings to take a hit. We can implement this by giving both players a set amount of rings. The more rings you collect, the higher your defense becomes. In order to get more rings, simply just hit the opponent. They'll lose a certain amount of rings and you'll be able to collect them. Another mechanic I thought of implementing was the boost mechanic. Every character may be fast, but some characters are faster than others. I was thinking by sacrificing half of your meter, you can gain a speed increase for a certain amount of time. The more meter you have, the longer your speed increase. Also, some characters will just simply move faster and boost than others. With that out of the way, let's move on to the roster. From looking at rosters like Sonic Battle, Sonic the Fighters, and even Virtual Fighter 7, I've chosen to average the base roster around to be 11 characters. Or, that was my original plan until I remember Sega loved having guest characters in their spin-off games. So...
You know what? I got 2 more for y'all.
Yeah, I added an extra 2 characters to make the total count 13. I wanted to choose a number that seemed realistic to what Sega would choose for their fighting games. I felt like 13 was a good choice. So to start off this list, we've got Team Sonic. We don't have to spend time on Sonic. He's a rushdown character, obviously. I don't think anyone else would disagree on this one. His moveset can be heavily inspired by his Sonic Battle and his Frontiers iteration. Lord knows Sakurai dropped the ball with his Smash moveset. He'll have really strong pressure with his speed, and he'd be hard to catch. He will most likely excel in strike throw mix-ups. In short,
You lose to fluffy throws and mids, you can hold my nuts.
however, he would have pretty standard defense and a lot of whiff recovery as trade-offs. Tails would be a zoner with a lot of mobility, setting different gadgets around the screen to assist them in keeping the opponent away, while being able to fly away if the opponent gets too close. He'll of course lack defensive options as Tail isn't as experienced in battle as his other two friends. Knuckles will be a tanky brawler. He would armor through attacks to make up for his poor speed and land devastating combos that deals tons of damage. He can also have an attack that allows him to dig underground and pop right up in the opponent's face as a way to bypass zoning. Next up we have Amy. Now Amy will be a brawler like Knuckles. However, instead of being tanky, Amy will be a bit more rushed down. She would also have more range thanks to her hammer. However, since Amy isn't as tanky, her defense is way worse. Maybe you can find a way to add her terror cards to her moveset, like her glide or her card throws. Now we got a few no-brainers out of the way, so we can get a bit crazy, with our next two characters being Mighty and Ray. Now I chose these two because I feel like they'd fit right in a fighting game. And although Sega doesn't use these characters that much, they have been using them quite a few times recently in spin-offs. Starting with Mighty, he will be a Shoto character, the easy to pick up character. He'll have all those benefits that the Shoto gets, the Fireball, the Tatsu and the DP. However, we don't want Mighty to be a born all-rounder, he needs some sauce. Maybe we can give him a counter, where he blocks an attack with his shell. You know, since he's an armadillo. Or maybe a command grab. Just anything outside the norm for a Shoto character. Moving on to Ray, he'll be a mobile mix-up character. He can have a hover dash, or even a higher jump height than anyone else in the game. Another unique use of Ray's flight ability is to just give him a flight mechanic similar to Morgan or Magneto, where they can move freely across the screen for a few seconds. For attacks, I can envision Ray using his tail to wall out opponents, keeping them at the mid-range. He would have short combos that lead into a knockdown, which in turn gives him access to his mix-ups, much like other mix-up characters. Now using work done with wacky characters, you're wrong, because the other two characters are Fang and Bean. I can definitely see these two causing goofy antics as minor antagonists. Fang will be a zoner that can stand switch by either fighting while riding his airbike Marvelous Queen, or opting to fight using his pop gun. While using Marvelous Queen, Fang can hit harder and reach further ranges while having better ground mobility. However, he becomes a way bigger target and has horrible air mobility. When Fang is without his vehicle, his air mobility is way better and has quicker attacks, with the trade-off being his lackluster damage and much slower ground mobility. Bean would be the item throw or RNG character in this game. He would throw a different variety of bombs at random, with different damage, properties, and explosion timings. He would even have a chance of hitting himself with the bomb if he isn't careful enough. And that's about it for Bean. Like, he's not that complicated. Now with those two goofballs out of the way, we get back to some normal characters. The next one being my favorite character in the series, Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow will be a set play character with strong mix-ups, using Chaos Control to teleport around the screen and using that purple and blue energy orb from Sonic Battle as a projectile that slowly homes in on the enemy as a set play projectile. He can also use Chaos Spear as a basic projectile and even uses air shoes to hover temporarily to stall his momentum in the air. Shadow can also get an install where he takes off his inhibitor rings and become more powerful. There's so many ideas you could use for Shadow because of his wide arsenal of abilities and weaponry. We wouldn't be able to fit them all in. So with Shadow out of the way, let's get to our 10th character, Eggman. Or is he? Now I've seen conversations and watched a few videos that made rosters for a hypothetical Sonic fighting game, and I've noticed many of them made Eggman either a zoner who sends badniks to fight for him, or a grappler by having them fight in a mech. Now those are all cool ways to make Eggman a fighting game character, but I have another idea. Let's make him a puppet character. Let's have Eggman be the main body. I get this. Sage as the puppet. Imagine Eggman starting off the match without a mech and he needs Sage to protect him while he builds one throughout the battle. Eggman would eventually have access to an install where he finally builds a huge mech that deals huge damage, with Sage empowering all of his attacks. So yeah, the 10th character is shared with both Eggman and Sage, and I think that's a pretty cool idea. Now the 11th character has to be this new hypothetical character that I've been talking about earlier in the video. Now as of right and recording this script, I don't know if I'll create some sort of design concept for this character, but if I do, I'll probably post some images of him on screen. With that out of the way, this new character should be a grappler. Mostly because I haven't added one to this list yet. We honestly could do whatever we want with this original character. Anti-air grabs, OTG grabs, command grabs, just give him all of it. Maybe give him one armor move for defense and we got ourselves a traditional grappler. Now I said I was gonna add 2 guest characters, but that was kind of a lie. I'm only adding 1. The other character is kinda special. The character I'm referring to is Honey the Cat. Now the reason that I said Honey is special is because she wasn't originally a Sonic character. Instead, she was originally a character in another Sega game called Fighting Vipers. I won't get too deep into the specifics, but Sega had plans to put her in the arcade release of Sonic the Fighters. Heck, her code was even in the game, but they were unable to add it for some unknown reason. However, in the 2012 re-release on PlayStation and Xbox, they finally added her to the game. Now, most people know Honey from the comics, but she originated in a Sonic game. A Sonic fighting game for that matter. For that reason, I wanted to add her to this game. Let's make Honey a Shoto character. This game's can to coincide with Maya Ryu, I guess. Her fireball would have multiple hits, and she'll be able to combo off a Tatsu. She will also have a DP, but to make her unique, let's give her an install. More specifically, let's make it a reference to Sonic the Fighters Hyper Mode. Let's allow Honey to gain better frame advantage on her normals and reverse speed in order to create new combos that are impossible for most characters. Now let's get to our real gas character, and this one probably isn't going to be a surprise, but it's going to be Knights. There isn't a specific reason why I chose Knights rather than the fact that they just fit in the Sonicverse so well. Knights will be a rushdown character, using their flight and portal abilities to close the distance fairly quickly. I think the most important thing is to make Knights really flashy. Depending on the playstyle, Knights can even become a hit and run character. So that is our base roster. But we're not done yet. Who's ready for DLC? For DLC, I've decided to make each wave 6 characters. The roster is already a tad small, and there's like a million characters we could add to this game. There's so many characters I wanted to add to the base roster but chose not to for different reasons. So the first wave of DLC is specifically for that reason, starting with Silver and Blaze. Silver will be a hybrid between Rushdown and Grappler. Silver would use his telekinesis to maneuver around the screen, while also being able to grab opponents from both a distance and up close. Silver's far-range command grabs will be much slower than the close-range command grab. He would also be able to throw debris as projectiles like he does in most of his boss battles. Blaze will be a Shoto character. I'm honestly surprised I managed to fit 3 Shotos in here. But she won't be traditional like the others. If Mighty is Ryu and Honey is Ken, then Blaze is Akuma. I mean, not really, but considering we have 3 shows, I just kinda wanted to make that comparison. Blaze would have a grounded fireball and an air fireball, a flash kick instead of a DP, and her Tatsu would have a follow-up. Maybe we could give her a special move that allows her to power up her next special move. Our next 2 characters are Espio and Bark. I also wanted to add these 2 because most of the characters that were playable in Sonic the Fighters were in this roster, and they were the only ones missing. Espio is a prime example of a rushdown mix-up character. He's a ninja. Espio would have very great run speed, jump height, and the ability to triple jump. He can use his camouflage ability to confuse his opponents, and will be able to cling to walls. However, Espio will lack attack range and his damage will be lackluster. Bark will be a grappler with a lot of armor moves. His command grabs will probably be the strongest in the game, with the trade-off being that he's most likely the slowest character in the game. Now we're down to our final 2, and I must say that I actually love this roster because it's feeling like a mix of both classic and modern characters that we don't get to see often. With that being said, we need a fan favorite, but with a twist.
Then who was it? Who locked you up here for trying to conquer the world?
It was...
All living things kneel before your master.
I wasn't completely sure what archetype I wanted to make Neo, but the idea I thought of was really clever. Neo will be able to shapeshift his body into different variants, such as the original Metal Sonic to boost his speed, or even Metal Sonic Kai using large mechanical limbs to deal huge damage to the opponent. He can also shift shape into Liquid Metal like he does the Sonic Heroes to dodge attacks or negate damage. And we can also allow him to transform into Metal Madness or Metal Overlord as a super. The last character on this list is Emerald. I added the entire Sonic the Fighters cast in this roster, but none of the characters that were exclusively in Sonic Battle. Emerald's entire concept screams fighting game, so I had to put him in here. Now I have two ideas for Emerald. One was to make him similar to 11 in Street Fighter V, or Mokujin in Tekken, where he isn't his own character. Rather, he just copies the moveset of a random character in the roster, and switches every round. The second idea was to make him a composite character, where his moveset is an amalgamation of the entire cast, while still being able to copy a select few attacks. Think of characters like Double from Skullgirls, Seth from Street Fighter, or Majin 21 in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Both of these ideas are really fitting, as the first idea fits Emerald's story arc, while the second idea fits the Sonic battle mechanic that allows you to mash together different attacks from various characters and give it to Emerald. So there we have it, our base roster and Season 1 of DLC. However, there's something else I want to talk about, and that's the comic characters. Sonic has so many characters in different forms of media, so I assume Sega has probably getting rights to use a lot of them in different things. That being said, this is a hypothetical roster, so guess what?
We don't care.
Let me tell you something.
We don't care.
Jerry.
Time for another wave of DLC, this time specifically for comic characters. Now I'll admit, I'm not too versed in the comics for me to give you an accurate representation of how they could possibly play, so I won't be describing gameplay, but I still wanted to do this for you comic fans out there. So for this wave of DLC, I'll be pulling 3 characters from the Archie comics, and another 3 from the IDW comics. We gotta get him in a fighting game. He is literally Evil Sonic. I also really think his interaction with the rest of the cast will be really good. In a hypothetical game where I made Knuckles a major character, I think adding Inner Jack is a must-have. Especially if the other character I created specifically for this hypothetical game is also an echidna. Imagine having Inner Jack possessing both Knuckles and this new character. If we can have Sonic's evil counterpart in Scourge, then we can have Metal Sonic's good counterpart in Shard. Shard is another example of characters I think would have good interactions with most of the other characters. I really don't know much about Tangle other than she's quite liked by the IDW fans and that her design seems cool. Easily the most popular character in IDW comics, and I don't even need to read it to know that's a fact. Whenever the comic gets brought up, Surge is in the conversation. Kid Tsunami the Surge is what Tails is to Sonic. Wherever Surge goes, Kid Tsunami follows. You can't have one without the other. And there we have it. The roster is finally done. Lastly, before we close out this video, we gotta talk about stages. Not much to discuss rather than what kind of stages I would like to see. Green Hill Zone, Hydro City Zone, or Hydrocity Zone for you weirdos, Doomsday Zone, Angel Island, Stardust Speedway, Station Square, Emerald Beach, Ice Cap, City Escape, Pumpkin Hill, Seaside Hill, Grand Metropolis, Rooftop Run, Planet Wisp, Sand Oasis, Misty Lake, Soliana, Crisis City, the Starfall Islands, and the Chow Garden. I believe there's still more room for other stages, however, there's so many beautiful and iconic Sonic stages that we'd be here all day, so I tried to vary the stages as much as possible. With that being said, we've come to the end of the video. I wanted to include as much Sonic media as I could to make this feel like the most authentic Sonic experience as possible. This is one of my favorite series ever, so I wanted to do the absolute most. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I hope you all enjoyed.